What would you ask a lawyer if you could ask them anything? My brother and I opened up an answering machine to allow friends and family to do just that. The questions we received were remarkable. So remarkable, in fact, that we decided to turn them into a podcast. Now, while this podcast isn't legal advice and it's just for fun, we think you're really going to like what you hear. With that being said, my name's Nathan Beam, and I help run a personal injury law firm in Melbourne, Florida.
My name's Riley Beam, and I'm a personal injury attorney.
And from the law offices of Douglas R. Beam, this is Good Questions for Bad Days.
I was once in a professional capacity at an event at a school, and my boots did not have good traction, and I fell down the stairs. Literally, when you slip and then you just bounce down the stairs. And it was quite painful because I landed on my back. But then someone saw me do it, and rather than being like, "Are you okay?" They're like, "Will you sign this form so that we're not liable if something happened?" And I was so flustered that I signed the form because I was embarrassed that I just fallen down the stairs. But should I have signed the form? And should I have sued my employer?
Well, if they get the form signed, there may be some way to say that, this person, agreed that they're not going to pursue us, and so the person who signed it would think that my whole thing's over, even, if I'm hurt. That signature, that agreement may be invalid for a number of reasons. Number one, you're a little bit under duress, right? You fell, you're disoriented, you're maybe in pain, you're embarrassed, you're kind of pressured to do it. So you sign it, trying to just be a nice person. I don't want to do anything about this. I'm not, gonna make a big stink about it. Till later, maybe it's a bigger deal than you thought. Then also, you're supposed to get something in return. If you make an agreement with someone not to do something, usually there's some sort of, you get something in return, whether it's $1 or some sort of benefit or something from it. Just to have someone sign something saying you're not going to sue me, well, pay me to sign that, right? To give me something. So, sometimes they will offer nominal amounts of money. If you sign this, we'll give you a gift card to Publix or whatever, we'll, and that may be enough to say you released the at-fault person. And in this case, the example was that her boots didn't have good traction and she slipped, but maybe it was the floor that didn't have good traction. Maybe it was a combination of both, Lots of people wear all kinds of shoes. So, you don't really know, even if you kind of feel clumsy or something, it's good to look into it because it may be something that actually wasn't your fault. Maybe someone else just had an unsafe premises.
That makes sense. Well, it's intimidating, right? You're on the floor, you've just fallen, and your employer comes up to you and is like, "Hey, sign this." Are there any just general suggestions you could offer to people that they could store in the back of their heads if they're in the situation in the future? Is there any sentence you suggest they say or any steps they can follow to kind of quickly get out of that uncomfortable situation while preserving their rights?
Yeah, I always tell clients, be respectful in these types of situations, even if it's, embarrassing, even if they're being pushy. So you could say something like, "Oh, thank you for checking on me," even if they're not. I'm a little out of it now. I don't know. I got to look at it. I'm kind of embarrassed. Is it all right if I get back to you later? You can take the form and move on. If they're demanding you sign it, you can say, "I'm just not comfortable signing it now. We can talk later about it." You don't have to do anything that they're demanding you do. So I wouldn't sign it.
I find that people often feel a lot of guilt when they're in these situations. And the guilt comes from the fact that they don't want to sue their employer, right? They don't want to put their employer in a bad situation. They like their boss. Can you talk a little bit about what it means, when you get injured and, some of these concepts around workers' compensation and, quote unquote, suing your employer.
Right. Yeah. Workers' compensation is something your employer pays for. It's insurance they have for workplace injuries. So you can get hurt. And even if you've contributed to your injury or you're doing something on the workplace or that happens and you're injured in any way, you'll want to talk to a workers' compensation lawyer and get to know your rights. It's something your work has paid for. Sometimes it does turn contentious with the employer and the employee, but in all likelihood, those are probably already not great work environments. If your employer is upset that you are trying to get something for your injuries like medical treatment or lost wages, yet in Florida, at least, your rights are more limited than in other, types of injuries and workers' comp. And but it's a real specific, type of law, and you'll want to talk to a specialist in workers' comp and get to know your rights. So don't worry about upsetting your employer, as far as just talking to a lawyer and knowing what you're going to be facing if you decide to go that route.
Children of the 80s and the 90s, I'm going to hit you with a throwback here. Just say no. If you have a form handed to you urgently, it might be good to take some time to consider what that means and why they're asking to sign it. It's definitely worth calling a lawyer as well. If you're facing a legal issue, particularly a personal injury one, call us. With over $100 million in settlements and verdicts for families in Central Florida, we've gotten pretty good at what we do. And in the 35 years we've been open, the reviews and the word from the community, I think, is representative of that. So if you're facing any sort of legal issue, you should call us. If we can't help you, there's a really good chance that we know someone who can. And hey, if you're an attorney who's listening to this podcast and is looking for co-counsel in Florida, you should also give us a call. We regularly work on multi-million-dollar cases and would be happy to help. You can reach us at 321-723-6591 or at dougbeam.com. And from all of us, the law office of Douglas R. Beam, we really appreciate you listening, and we're looking forward to answering more good questions for bad days.